There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with a kind of a different kind of video I'd like to make. I was trolling around on Twitter the other day. I think it was just yesterday. And somebody, maybe it was the publisher themselves, sent out a tweet with a certain publisher that I'm really interested in, their fall 2021 catalog, and it is fabulous. And that publisher is from India, Seagull Books. They put out really interesting stuff, a lot of stuff in translation, gorgeous hardcovers, just stuff you don't find anywhere else. Really high quality translated literary fiction, which is my jam. Here's the cover. So I just thought I'm just going to go through it and tell you what looks interesting to me. Not all of it does. There is pages of stuff by, how do you pronounce that French philosopher's name? Jean-Paul Sartre. So we're going to skip all that. I see there's a biography of Primo Levi coming out in January, I guess. So that would be January of next year. Primo Levi, an Identikit by Marco Belpoliti, translated from the Italian by Clarissa Botsford. He was a very prominent Italian Jewish chemist, Holocaust survivor, writer, wrote several books, most famously perhaps If This Is a Man, and this is a biography of him. That sounds pretty darned interesting. There is a collection of poetry by the Congolese writer Alain Mabanckou, and I'm not interested in trying his poetry, to be honest, but it's called As Long as Trees Take Root in the Earth and Other Poems, translated from the French by Naomi Carlson. There is a new novel from Kenya, and the family name is Ngũgĩ, Seasons in Hippoland by Wanjiku wa Ngũgĩ. I am going to assume that that is a daughter or a relative of Ngũgĩ wa Thiong'o. Let's see. She was born in the 1970s. And yeah, she's a daughter of Ngũgĩ wa Thiong'o. It's an enchanting novel of magical realism, and it's coming out in October. Set in kind of an imaginary African country. I'm not a big fan of magical realism, so I will wait for a bunch of you to read it and tell me whether it might be a Shawn book regardless, but I'm excited that this is becoming a writerly family. I am interested in reading something by Cees Nooteboom, a Dutch writer, and he has written a collection of poetry about the pandemic called Leaving, a poem from the time of the virus. So these poems dwell on the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, might want to try that. It's coming out in August, translated from the Dutch by David Colmer. There are, it looks like a half dozen, maybe a dozen, new editions of Jean-Paul Sartre. I have absolutely zero interest in them, but obviously I'm putting a link to this. It was on Twitter as a Google Drive file, which is what I will put that link in the show notes. But no, I'd say there's a dozen Jean-Paul Sartre books. No, thank you. Much more interesting is a novel by a female Slovakian writer in translation. This is Boat Number 5 by Monika Kompaníková, translated from the Slovakian by Janet Livingstone. The story of a girl struggling to take care of her to survive in post-communist Slovakia. Coming out in October. Kompaníková is considered one of the most outstanding writers today in Slovakia. One of the things that Seagull Books does is they often have a kind of a theme or a particular region, and they publish, and they call them the list. So this must be the Slovakian list or the Slovak list. They have a whole series of German titles called the German list, and they have a whole bunch of... Go check their website out. They are a really exciting publisher. So this is another Slovakian novel, Necklace/Choker. The subtitle, all in lowercase, is Then, Meanwhile, Now, a small novel in fragments, by Jana Bodnárová, translated by Jonathan Gresty. Set in a small Slovak town in the 20th century. Ooh, that sounds really interesting. And look at the cover. And here is a queer novel from Poland. 11-inch by Michal Witkowski, translated by W. Martin, about a queer teenage Eastern European sex worker in the 1990s. And what does it take to succeed as a queer teenage Eastern European sex worker in the 1990s? 11 inches and a ruthless attitude. Oh my goodness. His groundbreaking novel Lovetown was the first explicitly queer novel ever to be published in Polish and was longlisted for the Independent Foreign Fiction Prize. Well, I am lining up for this one especially, which comes out in October. And this is part of their queer list, which they call the Pride List. Oh, that sounds fascinating. A collection of short stories from Hungary coming out in September. Postcard from London and Other Stories by Ivan Mandy, translated from the Hungarian by John Batke, and it's one of the first of his to come out in English. Ivan Mandy died in 1995. This one also just looks incredible. From Norway, The White Bathing Hut by Thorvald Steen, translated from the Norwegian by James Anderson, coming out in August. A novel about disability, family secrets, and Norway's eugenic past. Oh my god, I don't even want to know anything more about it. I just want to read it. Thorvald Steen is a Norwegian writer who has published a wide range of stuff. The cover looks fabulous too. That is going to the almost pretty much to the top of the list of the ones that I want to get. Here is an experimental novel from Palestine, The Dance of the Deep Blue Scorpion by Akram Musallam, translated from the Arabic by Sawad Hussein, coming out in October. I'm not necessarily always into experimental fiction, but I'm curious about this one. I'll read the first sentence of the blurb here. On a plastic chair in a parking lot in Ramallah sits a young man writing a novel, reflecting on his life, working in a dance club on the Israeli side of the border, scratching his father's amputated leg, dreaming nightly of a haunting scorpion, witnessing the powerful aura of his mountain lodging aunt. Oh my god. Akram Musallam was born in Tafit, near Nablus, in 1972. Here is a French novel, Rossi, by Tiffany Tavernier, translated from the French by Teresa Lavender Fagan. Here is the one-sentence blurb. Disguised as a passenger, a homeless woman lives in Paris's Roissy airport until she meets a man who makes her confront her past. Coming out in November. I'm sure I can do better with the pronunciation of Roissy.
Roissy, French. Roissy, French.
Ooh, I don't know if I can do that. Roissy. That one sounds pretty darned interesting as well. Here is another French one coming out in November. Bliss by Clara Magnani, translated by Teresa Lavender Fagan. A novel about love and grief. The first of her novels to be published in English. She lives in Brussels, so this would be a Belgian novelist, wouldn't she? It's a short. It's only 134 pages. So there's a whole bunch here together that are part of the French list that Seagull Press puts out. Here's the next one, also publishing in November, Tristan by Clarence Boulet, translated by the same translator, Teresa Lavender Fagan. Another English language translation debut, set on an island after a 7-day journey on the South Atlantic aboard a lobster boat. Okay. Here's one for Seagull Books' The German List, Killing Happiness by Friedrich Annie, translated from the German by Alexander Booth, coming out in November. Killing Happiness. Now there is the title for you. Deep sorrow, human darkness, breathtaking tension. It's a crime novel. It's not for me, but I didn't read that far until I got there, so some of you might be interested in it. I am just highlighting the ones that seem like Shawn books. This one definitely is not. A crime novel is the furthest thing from a Shawn book, but might as well leave this in the video. But you should all go and look at the catalogue in full, because there will be lots of other stuff there that might appeal to you. Here are 2 plays in one volume from India. Love and Reparation, a theatrical response to the Section 377 litigation in India, which was the battle to decriminalize homosexuality in India. The author is Danish Sheikh. There's nothing about a translator, so written in English. I Am In, publishes in September. Oh my god, that sounds fabulous. Here's another novel from India, Goat Days, by Benjamin, just one name author, translated by Joseph Koyapalli. Benjamin is an Indian writer and novelist who lives in Bahrain. So I don't know if Benjamin sounds like Benjamin. I'm assuming that's a man's name, but somebody will correct me. This is set in the southern Indian state of Kerala. The protagonist's dream is to work in a Persian Gulf country, perhaps like Bahrain. And it is a strange and bitter comedy, coming out in March next year. Oh my goodness. This is a novel from the African country Togo. I've never heard of any novel or novelist from Togo. Shadow of Things to Come by Kosi Efui, translated from the French by Chris Turner. Can I get a better pronunciation on that?
Kosi Efui.
Kosi Efui. Somebody will correct me if that's not right. Oh my goodness. So this is a catastrophic and carnivalesque dreamscape. A protest in the form of a novel. A protest against political rhetoric and the destruction of meaning by the government. Aha. That looks so interesting. For Seagull's Arab List, a novel from Egypt. The Book of Sleep by Haytham El Wardani, translated by Robin Moger, coming out in August. Oh, this is kind of a prose and poetry meditation. I'm not sure this would be for me. About sleep, I guess. But it was written at the time of the unraveling of the Morsi government in Egypt, so it must have other things going on in it as well. El Wardani says, "My concern was not to create a literary product in the conventional sense, but to try and use literature as a methodology for thinking." I'm not sure if that one is for me, but I am intrigued enough to want to try it. Another French one, The Red Sofa by Michal Lebray, translated by Nicole and David Ball. A quiet French novella exploring love, memory, and the perspective that travel gives us on both. What is it with these Europeans writing novels about travel? But anyway, this one might have more of a story than that other one from Poland. The young woman is going on the Trans-Siberian Railway line in search of her former lover. I'm not sure. Could be interesting. Here is one from Cameroon. Season of the Shadow by Eleonora Miano, translated from the French, I guess. The French is the Cameroonian colonial language, right? By Gila Walker. A brutal, dreamlike story about the first victims of the transatlantic slave trade. Miano is a Cameroonian writer who lives in France, so translated from the French, coming out in August. Okay, there's quite a few others that strike my fancy, but that's enough to give you a little tease. Do any of the ones that I'm interested in sound interesting to you? Do check out the catalog. Seagull Books has a lot to offer, and those are some of the ones that I'm supposedly not supposed to be buying so many books for the rest of this year. Thanks for watching.